so many leaders just want to lead by the hammer instead of lead by the mentorship. Like that's what we're there to do, is mentor them up to be better versions of themselves. And then in turn, the business is better because of it.
I'm not saying that the hammer isn't necessary
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's right.
It absolutely is. It's an unfortunate reality, but you can't lead solely by the hammer. The last phase, so document, implement, automate. Automation, in my opinion, the really fun and exciting part. Now, you shouldn't rush to get there, because if you just go straight to automation, then there's no planning, there's no training, and it's just like,
So we had a couple of problems with the audio on this episode, and I just wanted to be upfront with you. But there is so many value bombs in this conversation. I hope you'll stick around because it's totally hearable. It just has some ups and downs a little bit, but there are so many good value bombs into this, and a great conversation with my guest, Ben Serven. Meet Ben Serven. Hey, Ben, thanks so much for being here. Ben is the brains behind Black Sheep Global and the guy who turned property management chaos into streamline workflows. Think of him as your business's personal efficiency ninja, only friendlier and with fewer throwing stars. So, hey, Ben, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time. And this is take two, by the way. We tried to do this a few weeks ago, and I was in a lightning storm and totally zapped out the internet. And here we are trying this again. So
back for number 2.
that's right. Well, thanks for coming back. But
Absolutely.
tell me about Black Sheep Global and what problem you guys solve.
Yeah, great question. So Black Sheep Global is a small organization of nerds. I think that's probably the best way to describe us. We are nerds thoroughly. I mean, most of us are nerds for varying reasons, but or for various sectors, I should say. But our chief nerddom falls in technology and property management, and we have gotten obsessed with processes for property managers and really understanding what it means to create streamlined processes and how that can affect business growth over time. So what we do, really the need that we have sought to fill in the marketplace is that in the world of property management, there is an ever increasing need to be more streamlined and more efficient as the world becomes more technological. Property managers are having to keep up with that change in the world. But most property managers did not sign up to be hackers. They signed up to be property managers. They wanted to take care of houses, deal with maintenance things, and help people in the middle of the night with toilets that explode, right? That's every property manager's dream. So we decided to tackle the technology problem and the business organization problem. And so we have just really obsessed over that. And we work with about 250 or so different PMs now and helping all over the US, maybe even Canada. And yes, it's been a blast.
I love that. Let's dive deep into processes. I've had a few iterations of property management companies, and we found that about the third iteration of a process was where we started to really find some flow with it. But as you're advising somebody that say for instance, they just started the company and everything's in the business owner's head, and maybe they're ready for that first hire, or maybe they already have a couple hires and they just are expecting an outcome, if you will. How do you guide somebody into creating their first processes, and where do they start? I mean, policy comes into place as well, and flavoring like how the importance of policy has to play into the role of the procedure.
Yeah. Okay. That was like 4 questions rolled in one, but I love it. All right. So first of all, where do you start? Super easy. Write it down. That's it. Write it down. Just write it down somewhere, right? Get it out of your head. If it exists in your head, no one else knows what it is that you want. So write it down, be specific, and preferably do it in a digital format that's easy to copy and replicate and send to people, right? Don't write sticky notes. I mean, it's a good effort, but sticky notes are going to get lost, get burned up, throw in the trash. Put it on a digital piece of paper, right? Start there. So write it down. Secondly, once you've written it down, reach out to Black Sheep Global. We're going to hook you up with some cool templates that make it even easier to write it down, right? That gives you guidance on how your processes ought to look. Happy to give those for free to anybody who reaches out. Okay, let's see. I asked a couple other questions here. I'm totally blank.
Yeah, think about, so to see where should a policy be?
How do policies and processes work together? Really good question. Okay. So I think there's kind of 3 P's when it comes to this. And thank you to my dad, who's a pastor for years of training on how to come up with random alliterations: policies, processes, and principles. Okay. These 3 are the keys of the three-legged stool that hold up a property management company. A lot of people think that you need to start with the one. I am personally debating on that. I think that you have to start with all of them all at once. Now that's hard, and that's kind of the reality of growing any business. You need principles, right? This is the why. What is it that drives you personally? What are the values of your company? Why is it that you do what you do? You need policies which are going to govern beyond the principles of who you are and what you believe and kind of why you do what you do. Your policies are going to be like, what are our rules of the game, right? How do we actually run this business appropriately and properly? And then your process is like, okay, now we're actually going to do the things. Do you need all three of these? And it's like I said, some people think you should start in one place or the other. If you had to pick one, personally, I would just say that I would start with principles first, because I think your values really govern everything else. So I would start with your principles, your mission statement, your value statement, and I would also say when you sit there, recognize that it's going to change. That was a hard one for me when I first got started in this. Like, oh, okay, dang, I have to like put something that I'm gonna hold to this for the rest of my life. Like, this is a really big deal. How am I supposed to come up with the right thing to say? And the reality of it is that, while yes, you do want to capture the essence of who you are and what you believe, and try to put that down on paper so that you can go into business with the right mindset and the right documentation. You're a person. You're going to change. The world's going to change. Things are going to change. It's the only thing we can be sure of, right? Change. So, you just need to get started. So write it down. And that's going to be the big thing that will move you forward.
I like that. So let's define principles a little bit deeper because I think there is maybe some confusion on that. So as you think of principles, how do you define that out? Are these your core values or your core principles that the company like who you want to stand for, or just kind of tell me how you think help somebody think through that process?
When I think about principles, I think it's made up of three things. It's your core values, your vision, and your mission, right? Your core values being like, this is who I am as a person. This is what I believe about the world, right? Your mission is why you're here, right? This is the thing that we're going to accomplish. This is the reason that I'm here on the earth, is to do this thing. Right? And then your vision is how we're going to make it happen. Right? We're going to reach 10,000 property management companies, or we're going to reach 2,000 local owner investors, right? Whatever is your position. I think your vision is how you're going to accomplish the mission. At least that's how I think about it. How do you think about it?
Yeah, that's very similar. I think to me, it's kind of like what are my core guiding lights, if you will. So, like for instance, like our first iteration of core process or core values was like these 10 values that we felt were who we wanted to be because we were just starting out, right? Like we started with 10 core values, but we didn't have any doors to manage yet. So uh it was a future thinking, if you will. This is who we are and who we want to be. One of them was like, it's such a regulatory environment that we had a core value that was 100% compliant 100% of the time. So we would follow the compliance, even though we may not agree with the landlord tenant law or whatever, but we would follow it. We would be compliant because we think, that is a fiduciary duty that we have to the client. But as we progressed in time, we changed that one to something more of vigilance. We want to be vigilant in protecting the asset of our client. That's looking, in vigilance, meaning in an inspection or whatever. So I'm just giving some examples, but that's how I always looked at core values. Now that's the values or the principles side of things. Then yeah, you also mentioned mission and vision statements. Those are super important, I think. Like as we look into the future, what is the goal so big that our employees' goals fit inside of them? And I feel like that is often lost. And what happens internally in a culture is when the goal isn't big, if the vision isn't big, that you get a lot of, or you get an internal culture that allows for mediocrity. People that are just going through the motions. I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out, and that's my job, the job, right? Um,
Yeah.
but when you have a
You know,
Go ahead.
Oh, keep on, keep on. I was going to say, I want to jump in on that for a second because I think the other thing that can happen is you can have a mission that isn't big enough, but you can also have a mission that's selfish.
Ooh,
And I think
good.
that's really easy to do when you're like at the very early stages of entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
And it's your vision is, oh, to get rich,
Yes.
or I just want to make more money, like
Yeah.
whatever that is. It's usually very self-focused. I want to drive a Lambo, right? I want to be able to retire on the beach. Like that's not a good vision for you to sell to a team. Yeah, they might love you, and they're like, okay, yeah, I want to help them get a Lamborghini. That's cool, but that's a really selfish vision. So your vision has to be way, way bigger than that. Your vision has to encompass something that's massive. I think I've always loved the verbiage of the BHAG, right? The big, hairy, audacious goal.
Mm.
Um, first, is a great acronym, but just it's such a in your face way of thinking about how can we change the world.
Yeah.
Um, there's shoot, let's see, I'm gonna blank out. Oh yeah. Have you read 10x is easier than 2x?
No, I haven't
Oh
read that.
boy, okay. Put that on your short list because that's a really good one. But just I'll shout it out. Dr. Benjamin Hardy and there's a co-author. I want to say somebody stole. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Ben Hardy's the primary author. And just
Sullivan, who does EO?
Sullivan. There you go.
Right?
Ben Sullivan, and yeah, I think that's right. Ben Sullivan and Ben Hardy. But this idea of growing by 10 is easier than growing by 2, and just doubling. Right, most of us are like super happy if our business doubles year over year. Right, that's a really good year. You go like 20 or 30%, you're like, yes, that was amazing. Right, but one of the things I found really interesting about that idea of um, growing 10x is well, two things. So number one, I love that it's not a time bound idea, right? It's not, I'm going to go 10 times or 10x over the course of 1 year or 2 years or 10 years, whatever it is. It's more about, I want to grow 10x because I want to be a growth oriented person and I want to change the world with my business. Now, yes, we live in a time different society and world. Not denying that. Don't come at me. But of there is not necessarily a time bound aspect to the goal. And then I think the other reason this is just an amazing thing to think about is what if, right? What if you could grow 10 times bigger than you are today? And I think one of the things that I love about the book is it's not just about you that your business growing by 10 or multiplying by 10, but it's about how you are for changing in a 10x kind of way, right? A completely like one of the illustrations he uses is as a child going from crawling to walking. That's a 10x leap, a total game changer, right? The entire world has opened to this child in a way that it never has been accessible before. Same thing's true when you go from illiterate to literate,
Mm.
right? Complete game changer. And in our world, right, in kind of the world of adults here, it's like, oh, well, you learned AI. Whoa, that's a 10x leap, right? You understand the basics of how to use it. It's really a game changer. But those 10x leaps only have more looking for them. Or we're actually working towards accomplishing it, to have enough goals to even have that be up in mind.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is a really important mindset shift, especially, you mentioned as new business owners, but I feel like some business owners really never move that mind shift. It's always about a kind of a selfish motivation. And I get that, right? Because we leave our jobs and we step into the world of risk and entrepreneurship to obviously have a personal gain. I mean, that is why we do this. But I love that Jim Rohn quote that, if you help enough people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. Um, that took me probably like a year and a half to really grasp what that meant in business. Being about a year and a half into business, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to help them, serve them, and then what I actually get in result is outcome is a growth mindset business. So a business that is growing and getting new employees. And if I help my employees get what they want, then I can get what I want too, in the same turn. So I love that you stated that. It's really powerful. Okay, as you think of processes, uh, I often see that there's resistance towards it. Small business owners, maybe small-minded growth or no growth-minded folks, have this resistance, and that resistance kind of permeates within the company culture, if you will. How do you overcome that?
Mm, that's a tough one. Now, I'm gonna be preaching in the choir here because this is something I struggle with myself. So I'm gonna say the things that I know are true, and just know that I want to be listened to this. Like I can be like, Ben, you were correct when you said that. So do what you said you should do. Okay.
Hey, we're on a mission to make this podcast the very best for you, our incredible listeners. Here's something I've noticed. Many of you who listen regularly haven't subscribed yet, and honestly, one of the easiest ways you can support us right now is by clicking that follow or subscribe button. It may seem small, but it helps extend our reach on all podcast platforms, growing the audience more than you might realize. By subscribing, you're not just helping us grow, you're helping us create more content that's crafted with you in mind. So thank you for being here. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button now. Your support means the world to us.
So one of the things that I find is often the case where I'm having, a discovery call with a prospective client is that they come in and we talk about, what their needs are and what their goals are and how we can help them. And then eventually we get to a quote. They say, whoa, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it is. And a lot of the times they don't want to go beyond that, right? Because they're only thinking about the costs today. And I think that's very reasonable, right? We have money to steward, right? We shouldn't just be spendthrifts and throwing money at every cool tech or cool service that comes our way. But I think the miss on that is when we don't look at a long-term impact. I was talking with this Mark Brower a couple of weeks ago, and Mark said something, and he just phrased it so well when he was talking about some work that we were going to do for him, and about the impact of the work that we're doing over time. Right? If it takes 5 years for him to earn back the cost of what he's going to spend with my team, that's a 20% annual return year over year. Well, that's a real big return. And so thinking about these changes in terms of investments, right? I think that's the key thing that needs to change when we're thinking about how business owners are encountering these issues of incorporating processes. Because most of the time, when we're thinking about building processes at the first, well, yeah, of course, I want processes, right? One thing systematic, every time. There's going to be, people are going to do the right thing. We're not going to miss the steps, right? Owners be happier, tenants be happier. But then when we figure out, oh, well, shoot, this is going to take a lot of money. This is going to take a lot of time. This is going to take a lot of investment of my time, firstly, as a business owner. Oh, gosh, I don't really want to do this. I don't have time to do it, right? Again, that's not an unreasonable conclusion. Most of us don't have tons of extra time to spend. But without investing the time, you're going to stay where you are.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing's going to change. I say if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. Right? There is no change in trajectory unless you're willing to make a sacrifice. And whether that sacrifice is money or for your personal time or for your mental resources, there has to be some kind of sacrifice in order for you to move past the point at which you are currently. And if you're not moving forward, then you are going backward. Right? The rest of the world is moving forward without you. So I think there's some maybe mindset changes that have to happen for a lot of people who are at that early stage.
It's difficult to see them or help them see the potential gain state for doing this. They obviously see the pain, and the pain is easy, but sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to slog, right? I'm just going to slog through this, and hopefully someday that I'll have a breakthrough. But the reality is, it's almost like every time we go to a conference, Ben, you see 500 participants, and there's 515 people there total, and 15 people go home and make change and implement new things into the business, and 500 people go home and do nothing different. They just spent $4,000 on a conference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I love conferences. I think they can keep on happening, right? Because the reality of it is that those 15 people, they made the change, right? And so that investment was worth it for them. And I think what I hope for is that every year there's a new 15 people. Somebody else gets that motivation to push forward. And I think that's not always true, right? I think that's a reality. There are going to be people who recognize the need for change, and there's going to be a lot who don't. And that's hard. That kills me because like I want people to grow and get better and experience all the value and opportunity that they can by making those investments in their businesses. Some people are never going to see that. And unfortunately, that's something I've had to be okay with.
Yeah, I like that. How do you evaluate automation? Like what should be automated, what shouldn't be automated?
It's a good question. Give me a little bit more context on that.
Yeah, just anything. So, like for instance, you've got a process, and that process is full of manual steps. Like somebody's got to go in and click a box, or actually physically send an email, or whatever. All the things. But as we look at this environment where technology, AI has really taken off, how do we implement steps of automation to reduce the workflow, and what shouldn't be? Is there anything that you've seen that's like, oh, we shouldn't automate that, even though that technology is available? Maybe that's a touch point that property managers still need to be doing manually.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's some questions that you have to ask in order to know what the right thing to do is. And I don't think that there's a set specific answer, but I think you can ask some questions to help you find out what the answer is. So I'd say the first question that you should ask is it possible? Right? Is there a way for me to automate this? Is there a way for me to use AI to solve this problem? So once I've determined whether that's a yes or no, right? If the answer is no, well, then the buck stops there. Hey, technology does exist. Well, it can't do it today. I'll check again tomorrow, or maybe 6 months from now. Maybe there will be a new technology that allows me to do that. But until then, I'm stuck. But if the answer is yes, right, and you can see this is how I think conditional logic. If yes, if no, right? So if yes, if it is possible, then I want to ask, what is the cost, right? And I'm going to think through the actual cost, dollar cost, time cost, etc. But I also want to look at the relationship cost. So if I think about tenant-facing automations, tenant-facing automations is pretty easy to say yes to, right? We know that tenants like a lower human touch experience, right? This is why self-checkout exists. This is why people love Amazon, because we want to be able to get the stuff without having to deal with any people. And the more seamless and pain-free you can make it for your tenants, the better, right? So in many cases, on the tenant side of the equation, automation is easy to say yes to. Now, where you have to hit the brakes a little bit is, I think, when you're talking about finances, right? That's just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. But when you're talking about finances, you're starting to impact people in a way that they can really feel and appreciate, maybe not like. So I think you have to look at this in terms of emotion, right? What's the emotion that's trapped up in this scenario that I'm considering automating? So for instance, let's say I want to, if we're talking delinquencies, other than the great examples, like should I automate my delinquencies process or collections process? Call it what you will. I would say yes, partly. If we're talking about the first notice, it's a reminder that says, hey, you didn't pay your rent. Can you please pay your rent? Here's the link to pay your rent. Sure, automate that. Have fun with it, right? Second notice, yeah, keep on automating, right? Third notice, I would get a little dicey here, right? Hey, I'm paying the money. They're definitely not listening to your messages. Maybe we should carefully consider whether automation is the right answer here.
You might want to go knock on the door and collect some money.
You might want to go knock on the door, right? You might want to do something a little bit more relational. And I think you also have to, like I said, consider your audience. I've had plenty of clients who have businesses that are, say, in the deep South, where people are just a little bit less technology literate. And so I talk about automating. They're like, no, we can't be that. Like, first of all, we don't even have cell phone numbers for these folks. Most of them don't even have email.
Oh, wow.
So we're counting on house phones and mailed notices or physically going and door knocking to talk to these people. And that's the reality of doing business in certain areas of the country. Now, some of us who live in Texas or California or New York or wherever, where there's just like a lot of tech all the time, we don't even think about that. But property managers who are in that space are realizing that with real time And there's just not an opportunity to automate, right? And we can find other things, but that one particular sale, not going to work, right? Because their audience is going to be receptive to it.
Wild. Yeah, I didn't even think that was a thing. Like, to me, I kept thinking to myself, dealing with some HUD offices, you would have they would always say, "Oh, just fax me over the application." You're like, "Fax? What the it's the 25th year of the 21st century here, people." It's you know what I mean? It's crazy to think about a fax, but I guess that is real, and your rural markets are still, a little bit behind. Yeah.
Did you ever hear about this news article? This was maybe a year ago, and there was a discovery of a cave. I won't even say it's a discovery. It was basically just an uncovering of this cave. I think it was in Pennsylvania. I want to say where there are just all of these paper records from the U.S. government
Yes.
that they are still. Did you heard about?
Well, that was okay, so that's the retirement process. It's a old military silo, right? A retirement process for military. That's why it takes like 8 months or something to actually.
You got more context on it than I have, but it's such a good example. Like, holy crap, guys! Like,
The
we're
biggest
supposed to
budget in
be
the world can't figure it out.
the biggest in the world, the most advanced technological, like military in the world, and we're still storing paper records for retirement.
Yeah.
How about them? Like, that's crazy. But you got to know your audience, right? In this case, and we're not going to go into politics here, but we're dealing with a government that deals with a lot or runs things very slowly, and there's a lot of artificial choke points
Yeah.
that are kind of built to base to slow things down. So it's not like we're dealing with a government of I don't know, I'm not even gonna throw off on the name here, but like we're not dealing with a highly technological entity, right?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually look back and I think that I think a company can actually influence a marketplace,
Absolutely.
that will move it towards a more tech advance. And I take that from experience. When we founded our first property management company, all of the competitors, none of them allowed online rents. There was no online maintenance processing. They had a software, but like in order to get a rental list of available rentals, you'd have to go download a PDF or a Word document from their website, and that was advanced as it was. Of rental application, you'd have to download and then find your own printer. So you'd go to a lot of applicants would go to the library and print an applicant, and we were like, this is crazy, what do you think? And so we started with the software that did all of those things, and now obviously times have changed, but every single property management company has just so much more advancement, even in that little rural market we were in. But I think there's a phase in process, right? Like you could hope, dream that we're going to have all this tech advancement, but at the end of the day, there's only maybe a small percentage of your portfolio that will actually participate, and then you'll just work up to a full participation. We got a little off track, but
Well, I mean, that actually kind of comes, we're bringing it full circle here. Like that does kind of come back to what we were talking about earlier with having a big vision, right? When you were talk about cultural impact, like that's really measurable, right? If you're in a place that has very low tech adoption, you're like, okay, we want to help this community learn to adopt technology. Like that's a big vision. That's a very broad vision too, right? Trying to get a little bit more specific, but regardless, like you have a real fake study of that actually happening. I can share another case study for a company that I used to work for called blinds.com. Blinds.com started it as one guy in like the 1980s who had a 15 passenger van, and he would go around and sell people blinds and like knock on doors, and that was his whole business. By the time I got to this company back in I want to say 2013, it was a company of 300 or 400 at the time, but they were one of the first companies to take advantage of the .com boom and say, okay, we're going to figure out how to sell stuff online. It's kind of weird. Nobody's really done this before, but here we go. And now it's a, from $300 or $400 company that got acquired by Home Depot a couple of years ago for, I don't even know how many millions of dollars. And that's over time, right? Their vision, their impact has come to fruition, right? They've had an enormous impact, right? The technology built by one company is now affecting a, publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company that is international from one guy about 40, 50 years ago who's like, hey, I've got an idea. I think I can make this happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. He had a vision for a long-term plan there and executed, even though the market had to catch up. He was a
The market had to catch up. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. What's one of the, as you look at processes internally in a property management company, which process or automation maybe even delivers the biggest ROI that you've seen?
Mm. So I try to think about processes that the most people touch,
Mm.
right? For me, I'm typically going to start in a lease renewal process because that's going to touch a lot of different people in your company. And this goes back to your earlier question about getting people to adopt and like how to actually approach this. First of all, look for high impact areas, right? So a lease renewal process touches a lot of people and it happens all the time. You're going to run, 20, 30 lease renewals every month, hopefully, if you have, a reasonably sized portfolio. And everybody's going to be working on that. You're going to have your inspector, you got your maintenance people, you've got your property managers, you got your admins, leasing, like everyone's involved. That's really my top starting point that I would encourage anyone to begin with.
Yeah, I love that. And the lease renewal process was always funny to me because, we would have a lease renewal fee and, you get some kickback. Why do you need to charge a fee for that? Don't they just sign and agree to another year's term? And it was never that way. It was like a 6-month process to get a tenant because there's inspections involved and lease negotiations and rent negotiations and all these things that happen in that process and then we started to incentivize tenants if they sign the lease renewal early. There's a little bit of incentive for you to do that, and it's just always funny to me because like that process is not an easy process. And I love how you said it. Like there's so many people in the your stakeholders, the most amount of stakeholders are involved in that lease renewal process, which I totally agree with you, which is a huge ROI.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it, those are really only the internal stakeholders, right? You just voice the external stakeholders, which also could be have your owners, your tenants, your vendors, potentially. Like depending on the scenario, whatever's going on, lease renewal can lead to a move out, it can move to an eviction. It could like touch almost every part of your company and everything that you do in almost one blow, right? It's not directly in the lease renewal. It's going to lead into something else that someone else in the company will touch. So yeah.
Yeah. Now I'll sprinkle in a little bit more. Maybe this is a nugget for the audience, but we added additional to our lease renewal process where it had an if this then that, if you will, where if a client was like, I don't want to renew the lease, I'm thinking about selling my property, then we would initiate a we buy houses format process, and that's how we bought a lot of our internal portfolio. We would buy properties from our clients from that process. It was super neat.
That's awesome. I'm curious if you had a ballpark it, how many of those properties did you acquire over the year or over the years?
One year we did 11 in one single year, and over the course of probably 33 or so from the internal
If you
portfolio. Yeah.
if you think about that as a um like a lost opportunity,
Oh,
how many people are doing that? Like hardly anybody.
nobody does it, and that's it. The opportunity cost that is lost is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, in my case, it would have been $10 million. If you think about it. So, if we weren't doing that process, and so often these ones, Ben, were no money down. They just didn't want a rental property anymore. And we would continue the lease renewal process. So we had a tenant already in place. So it never went without cash flow. But we're talking millions of dollars that is lost in opportunity cost if that process isn't instituted.
Yeah, such a big opportunity. Gosh, and as the property manager, you already know all the idiosyncrasies of the house, right? You know all the problems. Um, what a massive opportunity in this for a lot of folks.
Definitely
Too late. Too late. Change that process, guys.
change that process. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So as you're kind of wrapping this up, how do we think of now? We've got some processes. What's the next step? Is it like an SOP, or is it a automation software that houses these? Like we're going to get more advanced than a digital paper
now in processes. How do we take this to the next level?
Yeah, so there's 3 steps in this. So you want to start by documenting, then you're going to implement. That's where the software gets involved, and then you're going to automate, right? That's where you're bringing in the extra stuff on top. So when I think about this, again, the documenting, let's just write it down. It's not that hard. And if you want tools for this, reach out to me. I'm happy to share them with you. On the implementation side, when you're talking about actually making these real in your business, there's definitely a software component, but there's also a people component, and the people component is arguably a bigger deal. Making change in your company is really challenging. At least that's been my experience and most of my clients, right? And you talk about the space between change, right? I'm over here on this side of no change. I want to get over here to this new changed outcome. The space between is really scary, right? Because it's unknown. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Now we can plan it out. We can timeline it, have all these ideas about exactly what that will look like. But the reality is we don't really know exactly what's going to happen. So your best approach there is to create as much of a plan as you can, stick to it as much as you can, and push your way through it. Now there's 2 approaches for kind of making the implementation change. There's the burn the ships methodology, which is very fast and very painful. And this is all right, guys, we are making change, get on board or you're fired. Right? It does work, but you're going to lose a lot of people. All right. And I see this done a couple of times, and that's really always how it plays out. The other approach is going to be your coaching and training approach, right? Where you say, okay, guys, this is where we're going. Let's set the vision. This is the plan. Now we're all going to work on getting here together. And it's slower. And arguably, it might be a little bit more painful, but it's not painful because you're losing people. It's painful because you're doing more investment up front, right? And by doing that further investment up front, your long-term rewards are massively bigger, in my opinion.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Look, I know there's a lot of podcasts out there, and hopefully this one right here is providing you with a ton of value. We want to make the best content possible and find the best guests possible so you're getting a ton of value. The simplest way you can support us in doing that is simply by sharing this episode. So please hit the share button and share it with somebody you know who will get something out of it. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you very much.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a
go ahead.
it's a missed point in leadership, right? So many leaders just want to lead by the hammer instead of lead by the mentorship. Like that's what we're there to do, is mentor them up to be better versions of themselves, and then in turn, the business is better because of it.
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying that the hammer isn't necessary sometimes. It absolutely is. It's an unfortunate reality, but you can't lead solely by the hammer, right? So yeah, so you got to take that coaching and training approach if you really want long-term sustainable results that are going to keep your team in a better spot. So the last phase, so document, implement, automate. Automation is, in my opinion, the really fun and exciting part. Now you shouldn't rush to get there. You've got to go through the other steps first. Because if you just go straight to automation, then there's no planning, there's no training, and it's just like throwing a match on a gas can. It's all going to explode. Automation thrives on definition, right? When you have clearly defined paths and rules and playbooks, then your automation can actually add value. As I think it was Wolf Crossy you talked about the Roomba that he programmed to clean his house, and it went around the house while he was gone and hit dog turd. And then it just kept moving the dog turd around the house, right? It didn't have any programming to say, oh, well, here's a dog turd, I'm going to go around it. So the automation didn't actually do what was helpful. It just did what was unhelpful even faster than if someone had been there to see it, right? So we want to make sure that the automation is set up correctly, right? There has to be a defining path for your automation to run on and understand and know before you just let it start running, right? Now, on the automation side, there's tons of levels to that, but there's lots of great tools that are in the market today: Lead Simple, Apply, Airtable, Monday.com, Asana, Trello, Zapier, so many cool tools, and only a couple of those are property management specific. There's a lot of other just tools that are out there that you can adapt to how your property management company works and get a ton of value out of. So that's kind of a side note, but I think a missed opportunity in the space is to look outside the industry as a software. There's tons of amazing software providers out there that can add you buckets of value. And yes, they may not be quite as intuitive as some of the PM focused stuff, but with a little bit of work, you can master some of those and add a lot of value to your business.
How do you advise people to evaluate available softwares in the stage that they're in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the starting point is to define where you're at, right? Let's figure out where we are, and then look at the outcome that we want. And then once we've defined, here's where I am, here's where I want to get to, then I'm going to say what's possible, or sorry, what do I need in order to get to the outcome that I want? And then once I've defined kind of the path to get to where I want to get to, then I go on Google and say, all right, so how do I make this happen with the software, right? What is the AI tool for this? And I'm going to use the power of the internet to its best possible outcome of research. And you got to check reviews and, try things out and see what works. You can certainly hire people like us to do a lot of that experimentation for you. We've already done it, though it's not experimentation. It's just us applying that software to your business instead of you trying and figuring it out, just trying, 15 different softwares. But to me, I think as the world continues to get more tech centric, right? There's always going to be things that are manual and places where tech's not really going to matter so much. But it behooves the business owner to understand tech to a point, right? You can't completely ignore it. As much as being a Luddite sounds amazing, I would love to live on a farm where there's no technology at all. The reality of it is, even if I lived on a farm, I'd still want to plow.
Yeah.
Right. And that's technology. It's just not digital technology. So that digital technology is everywhere. It's going to be in your competitors visit this. It should be in your business too. And if you're not taking advantage of it, you are leaving something on the table. Actually, leaving a lot on the table. And unfortunately, gosh, I'm trying to remember. There's a figure for this. I'm sorry, not a figure, but rather a law. You might even remember this. We were talking about it at the Onyx retreat. The law of the doubling of technology. Do you remember this?
Moore's law. Yeah.
Correct. Moore's law. Thank you. All right. So I think it's Moore's. I think the application of technology is like doubles every 24 months.
18 months. Yeah, but
it's 18 months. There you go. Okay. Every 18 months. And then I think on the AI law, whatever is the name of the new law, it's even faster. It's like every 6 months or something ridiculous.
And it's right? Not linear. So it's,
yeah. It's like we are in the curve right now. It's only going up faster and faster. So I think it really is a case of you kind of have to get up on the train and say, all right, this is where it's heading. And I may not love it. It may not be my favorite thing. And if it's not your favorite thing, call us. Like, we can help you with that. It is our favorite thing. We would love to help you had it not be your favorite thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it is, I think, a necessary part of building the business in this day and age. It's just going to become more and more so.
Yeah. As you advise, more and more people are getting into more tech advanced solutions. What kind of a grace period or a ramp up or a learning curve period, if you will, do you advise for somebody to try something and put a good effort into it before you give up or switch to something different?
That's a great question. I wanted to say that you should give any new software that you're trialing a minimum of 30 days of earnest effort. But I'm not talking about like logging in twice. This is super frustrating. I'll come back to this in a week. I'm thinking like actually sitting down and working in it, and really pushing to get the outcome that software is supposed to help you with, right? If you're learning Zapier, just as an example, go watch some YouTube tutorials on Zapier. Hang out with some people like that who love Zapier, and look at all the possibilities. Look at the case studies. There's so much information about what you can do with these softwares that it's really easy to go and find. And here's the outcome. Here's where I am. How do I get from A to B? Oh, here's the path.
Mm-hmm.
And then go through the path and try it. But again, I think there's tons of value in learning these things yourself, not just so that you know, because you don't want to be the font of all knowledge in your business, but
if you can at least understand the application, it becomes way easier for you to sell that idea to your team.
No, I love that. I think, with the software solutions that are outside the PM industry, there is just a plethora of knowledge base on YouTube and whatnot. Unfortunately, I think inside the PM base, there hasn't been that quote unquote influencer, if you will, that goes and evaluates softwares and shows you how to, do a lease renewal process within it or whatever that, is out there. And that has been frustrating. So I think the software companies themselves within the PM industry has tried to increase their knowledge base, but sometimes those are behind a gateway, right? A login gateway, and not on the open interweb, if you will. So you can, as a consumer, learn if this software solution is right for you. And I'm encouraging you guys, if you're listening, to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I think the real challenge there is like your net returns, right? If we look at the property management community, there's at least last time I checked, there's like 240,000 property management companies in the US today. And I'm not trying to discourage someone from this idea because I think it's a really good idea, but you do have to look at the net returns as you evaluate these ideas, right? At Black Sheep, we have a free community. So again, anyone listening to this, you're welcome to join us. It's called Processes Made Simple. And we nerd out about automation and process. And that's kind of our place where we hang out and talk with the public, if you will, about how we do what we do. And we tried to make that kind of a teaching platform. But for those influencers who are looking to get monetized on YouTube, I'm not confident this is going to be the way to do it. It's good information to put out. Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Yeah, I'm
don't
not
make a
I'm
career
not saying
out
they
of
will
it.
go viral, but maybe
Probably
there
not.
would be some
Probably
great
not.
resources out there.
Yep. Yeah, I got 1,500 videos on a view one time, so I think that's about as closest to virality as I'm possibly going to get.
I love it. I love it. All right, Ben. So you just talked about your free community, and that's available. Where can people find out about that? Where can people find out more about your business and who you are, and maybe your LinkedIn? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on all social media channels except Twitter. Don't try to find me on Twitter because I hate Twitter.
Well, Twitter
But
doesn't exist anymore, so cheers to that.
oh, that's true. It is. You're right. Okay. Well, I'm not on. Well, actually, I think I technically am on X, but I don't do anything there. So don't look for me on X. But Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have social media profiles. Love to connect with people there. Our website is blacksheepglobal.net. We've got links to the Processes Made Simple community there. And of course, you can feel free to reach out via Messenger or any of the social media message apps, and I'll be happy to chat with anybody who reaches out.
Fantastic. Any parting words?
Parting words. Gosh. Think of something profound here. Parting words are a big responsibility. Here's what I would say. To anyone who is a business owner, your responsibility is to create culture. And you have a massive opportunity as a business leader to create culture, both for the individuals who work in your organization and for your clients, whether they be tenant owners or really anyone who you touch, anyone who's part of your network. And I would encourage business owners to take that opportunity seriously and to be intentional about creating culture and to recognize that business building is one of the most powerful culture changers that there is.
Ooh, that is profound. Well done. I like it. Ben, thanks so much for your time today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Sean.
If today's episode hit home, share it with a friend. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.